Hi and
Hello.
welcome. It is Deb and Beck with our weekly show. And as always, we are really, really excited. We have a great question. Are you relationship ready? And a fabulous topic, comfort zones.
Oh, that was my choice this week.
But before we dive in, as always, we love to tell you about something we are up to so that you don't miss out, because we hate the thought of you missing out.
Yeah.
And this week we have been really busy and beavering around behind the scenes, sorting out to start again Relationship School Live, because we'll be going live again on September the 7th.
Yeah, that's the week we begin again on Relationship School.
Yeah, that's the week we start again. So if you are not already a part of Relationship School,
why not?
Yeah. What she said. Yeah. So yeah,
what do you need to know about Relationship School? So Relationship School is a live program that we do for 8 weeks, so from the week beginning of September the 7th all the way through into the end of October. And over those 8 weeks we just get really into the nitty-gritty. So if you've watched these shows before, and if you stay with us and watch today, you'll see some of the stuff we start to talk about. But in Relationship School we really get kind of deep dive into what it is that makes a relationship happy and healthy, because ultimately that's kind of what we all want, isn't it? Whether that's your romantic relationship, a working relationship, family, and
parenting.
Yes, that always comes up. But most importantly, and always starting with the relationship with yourself. And we just start to explore what it is that helps us to have those happy, healthy relationships.
Because life is all about relationships. When we look around, all of us want to feel happy, we want to feel loved, and we want peace of mind. And we seem to be able to go in and out of that because of how we are in how we relate to everybody else in the world, whatever that relationship is. And it all starts with the relationship you have with yourself. It all starts with a deeper knowing of who you are. So that's what we point to for, we dive really deeply into that over those 8 weeks. We have 2 live calls a week, which are recorded, and a ton of other resources in there.
Yeah,
so
loads going on.
The link to, absolutely loads. The link to Relationship School to go and have a look on our website will be underneath this video, and look out, because we will be doing some other videos about it to tell you a little bit more about it. But whatever you do, come on, jump in with us. No, don't miss out. It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's dive right into the show today. So our question this week is, am I relationship ready? And that's a really, really interesting one, because this question came about through somebody that we were talking to who had been going in and out of very short-term relationships, and every time there would be some problem, and then the relationship would end, and then the whole process would start again, and they would meet somebody, they would absolutely fall in love, think this is it, this is going to be the one, then it would start to go wrong, and then the relationship would end. And this person was really in a place of, I just don't know how to make a relationship work. I don't know how this relationship thing works. I don't know how to stay in any kind of long-term relationship. These are all very short-term things, and I would actually like to be in a longer-term relationship. And it's like, the question was like, how do I do this? How do I get ready to be in a longer-term relationship? And so we started having some conversations with this lovely lady, and over the time what we began to see was that, exactly like we were just speaking about in Relationship School, exactly what we look into, the more we know ourselves, the more we know the truth of who we are, the more healthy and happy these relationships can be. That the more easy it is, the easier it is to keep relationships going if they are the right relationship for you, and the more easy it is to get into a relationship that is the right relationship for you if you know yourself better. So we started to talk to this lovely lady,
very lovely,
about that, point her back to, we actually said for a little while, just forget about being in a relationship. And I think that actually came from her wisdom, didn't it? In the conversations.
Come back to knowing yourself and having some time for you. And that was something interesting that I saw for me as well.
Yeah.
Because when I first started having kind of conversations with Deb about what we share and how life really works, I wasn't in a relationship at that time, but there was somebody I was very close to, someone who was a very good friend, and I was really reluctant to get into a relationship with them, because somewhere in me I knew I wasn't ready. I knew there was too much kind of mess and noise in my own head.
Yeah.
So we stayed friends for a while, and I carried on having conversations with Deb and just getting to know more about me and who I was and how life worked. And the really big thing that came out for me from those conversations was that wholeness and completeness in me. Absolutely. Already. That person I was friends with, that I liked hanging out with, didn't make me complete, didn't make me happy, and also didn't make me angry. I think that's just something that we do, isn't it? Yeah. You know, and I saw that with the client Deb was just talking about, that it looked to that person regularly like that they irritate me, or they do this, and the relationship goes wrong. And the more I explored how that wasn't how this worked, that it comes from me. When I'm happy, when I feel good, when I feel whole and complete, that's coming from me. And when I get lost in that, I'm not feeling so great, that person needs to make me feel better, that's coming from me too. And the more I explored that, you know, it's never, oh, you'll be ready after this amount of time, or you'll be ready if you see this. You'll know as you get to know yourself.
And I feel we go in and out of it anyway, don't we? But definitely. I guess for me, it is absolutely having a sense of that wholeness and completeness that is you.
Yeah.
Because I think at any moment we can fall out of feeling whole and complete. Absolutely. You don't get to a place. Well, it's not been my experience that you get to a place.
No.
But there's an underlying knowing that you're whole and complete. And I remember hearing someone say, neediness stinks.
Yeah.
And I think and we can all feel that, can't we? When we are hanging around with someone in whatever capacity it is, if that person is a people pleaser, if that person desperately needs you in their life and is trying to do everything to make you like them, it's actually a repellent.
Yeah, it certainly is. If you're in a clear space, it's a repellent.
Yeah.
And one of the places I saw that really clearly, and I'm sure the people who have had this experience, is if you're going to buy something and the salesperson is desperate to make the sale, that desperation, you know, you walk away, you're like, no, I like the car, but I don't want
neediness,
it that much.
Those things are yucky, aren't they?
Whereas when you deal with someone who's just genuinely like, I've got a good product, if you're ready for that product and you want to buy it from me, I'm here, and it's a good, you know, it's
not brilliant.
You can feel that difference between someone who's desperate and not, whether it's sales or whether it's relationshipy.
Absolutely. And so for me, the question about when we're asking ourselves, am I relationship ready? It's almost one of those annoying paradoxes when you get to a place where you know you don't need to be in a relationship to complete you. That's when you are absolutely ready to be in a relationship. And it is, I can remember when I was really young and having conversations with my girlfriends and talking about, you know, when if I fancied a boy or anything, he didn't know I was alive, and I'd be desperate and want him to notice me and want him to see me. And then they would kind of say, oh, pretend you're not interested. And by the time I actually got to a place of not being interested, I thought, well, what's the point of that if I'm not interested? But it's one of those paradoxes that actually works in ways that when we talk about it, intellectually, it doesn't make much sense. But in the living of it, in the actual experience of it, when we genuinely go inside, and even if you are in a relationship that is maybe not the most healthy relationship, you know, and maybe needs a little bit of a vamp or whatever, if you go inside and find that wholeness and completeness within you, you show up as a different person. And that's when a relationship and actually sharing your life, even if it's sharing an afternoon, sharing a moment, sharing your house, whatever it is, however that relationship is, when you show up from that place, truly beautiful things happen. It's like the icing on the cake, isn't it?
It's a funny one because it sounds counterintuitive.
Oh, totally.
If I know I'm whole and complete, I won't want a relationship, or I won't be in relationships. But for me, it's like, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, knowing I'm whole and complete, relationships are just, the icing on the cake. And it is that I don't shy away from, relationships. I have beautiful friends. I have beautiful work colleagues. I have amazing family. I have the person I was talking about earlier. We are now in a relationship and happily have been for quite a few years now. And it's like, those relationships actually blossom in an entirely different way when they're given the space to do that. Like, interestingly, many of you will know, probably if you've watched anything we've done in the last 4 or 5 months, that we're doing a lot of gardening at the moment, and you can see the difference with flowers that get enough space to grow and expand versus flowers that are overcrowded. And what I kind of see in that is, when we're in that space of feeling kind of needy and don't genuinely know that we are whole and complete, we overcrowd in relationships, whether that's with our children, whether it's with our partner, whether it's our friendships. I don't know about anyone else, but if my friends or my family are over needy, I'm like, give me some space. But when they're actually not, when we're all working in that space of I'm whole and complete, bless you, that I'm drawn more to being around people that know they're whole and complete. And so I know it must work the other way, that other people are more comfortable with me in whatever relationship that is. So it actually works the other way. Like, we often talk in this conversation about going 180 degrees in the opposite direction.
Totally. And that is what we are pointing towards. And it doesn't often make sense to our intellect to do that. And yet I'm sure in the conversations I've been having, I've had a few new clients over the last few days, and I've been having some conversations with people who haven't actually been in this conversation, particularly in this way, but they can still see, if they look back over their life, they can say, it looked like this, but actually now looking back on it, I can see it was the opposite way. And it doesn't necessarily always make sense to our intellect, but life works in exactly the same way. And just like you say, it doesn't have the impact that you don't want to be in a relationship. You're actually quite excited to be with somebody from a clear headspace, and relationships in that space are so healthy and so happy. It's brilliant. And of course, like everything in life, they have their ups and downs.
They certainly do, yeah. But it is that, for me, it's that when we talk about grounding, if you've heard us talk about that, to me, that is that underlying knowing that you are whole and complete. Yes. And if you have those moments that you forget, or that it doesn't look that way, coming back to seeing that in every moment in relationships, for me, if something is happening at some point, and it might not be instantaneous, but fairly quickly and very regularly, I come back and go, okay, if this looks like a wobble, if this looks like something's going on and that person isn't doing the right thing, or is doing something that seems to irritate me, come back to knowing my wholeness and completeness.
So I guess in a nutshell, if you're going to do, are you relationship ready? The question would be, do you know that you are whole and complete and do not need anyone else in your life? And actually asking yourself that question quietly, going inside and getting a true answer. Explore that for yourself. That would be. I've got a little bit of
have a drink and I'll announce the topic if you like. So our topic this week, chosen by me, is comfort zones. And I picked that because it was something that was kind of coming up for me, and I think I might have even shared it in our living and learning a little bit last week. It's something that I've been exploring again recently. I like to have regularly something that I'm kind of playing around with in my own mind, personal kind of. I
think we both do.
Yeah, I think that's something I might have learnt from Deb as a. It's just a fun way to kind of, what can I explore this week or this month or today? And off the back of my recent holiday, I just saw that place again. It's something I played around with a few years ago, and it's kind of, it went on the back burner for a while. I have like a bucket list, or in my mind I call it my eternal to-do list, and it's made up of fun things that I just like the idea of doing in my life. And some of them are things I look at and think, I can't see a world where I can ever make that happen, or that's going to come about. I'm going to put it on my list anyway, because I just don't know.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, and or things that I look at and think, oh, I can't see me being brave enough to do that. Can I really step out of my comfort zone and do something like that? So it is just, for me, that the topic was just about something I've been exploring and having some fun with. And a couple of things that I've done or started to think about doing recently that are marginally outside of my comfort zone.
I like to think of it as well in relation to my thinking and my mind, to go outside my comfort zone of what's going on with my thinking, and to question some of the things that look as if they are just solid, and that's how they are in my own mind. Thoughts that I have, or thoughts that maybe I notice when other people are having conversations, and it might highlight something that I believe to be true, or something that looks real for me, that you can't speak to that person in that way, or you can't think this, or you can't
everyday things.
I love to go outside my comfort zone in those ways of questioning thinking that looks really real and true to me, and question, I don't know, whatever. I know we're doing that around our business. We're absolutely pushing ourselves completely out of our comfort zone, but in a good way, to just to mix it up a bit, and to see that this. I remember we live in North Devon, and I remember moving into the village first. We actually live just outside the village now, but when I first moved down here, we lived in the centre of the village, and I started to get into village life, and it's lovely. It's a beautiful community, absolutely lovely, and they do some amazing things. They have all sorts of really lovely things. Obviously, a lot of them aren't going on at the moment due to COVID, but they have a carnival week, and all sorts of, every day they would have an activity in carnival week, and there's some beautiful activities, and I got a little bit involved in arranging some of these things, and it was really interesting to me that as I got into some of the committees and some of the things that into some of the conversations, they had their ways of doing things. And it would be like, and nobody had ever questioned why they did it that way. It was always like, that's how we always do it. That's how we've always done it. And with some new people, not just me, other new people coming into the village and making suggestions of how we could change it, you could feel the resistance to, no, we've always done it like this. No, we've always done it like this. And I'm not even saying that the way that they did it was wrong, but it was one of those times that it really sparked in me, how many places do I do something because it's the way I've always done it, without even looking to consider, is there another way? Is there a different way, a better way? It's just definitely, that's our challenges. And it's not to say we don't ever go back.
No, I think that's the magic of this, is it's everything from, we talk often about having your cup of tea out of a different mug. It's everything from those kinds of ordinary day-to-day things, all the way through to, things like, for me, moving down to Devon. I'd lived in the Midlands my whole life, and I moved here and we started working together and living together. That was way out of my comfort zone.
I think it was way out of all of us.
Yeah, it was like, let's do something different, and things like a few years ago, Lucy and I did a skydive, and that was way outside my comfort zone. And, those kinds of things, from kind of the everyday comfort zone things that we get into, all the way up to those kind of almost once in a lifetime moments. And just for me, playing around with that, like the reason I set up my kind of eternal to-do list was just to kind of challenge myself a little bit. It was never I have to do everything on the list, and it was always just about what adventures are out there waiting for me, because just playing with some of these things changes stuff for us. Like, we get to go out in the world and play and have fun and try something different. And, you know, one of the reasons this came up for me was because I went canoeing while I was on holiday, which was something I'd always had as that's not something I'm going to do. That's not a for me thing. And I had a wonderful time. And I really, really enjoyed the day that we were out canoeing. And right now, it doesn't feel like canoeing is going to be my new hobby and I'm going to spend hundreds of pounds becoming a canoeist. Is that a word?
Probably.
But it just was something I've now done, that if the opportunity arises again, I may do it again. I had an amazing day. And it just is about what is out there that we are just writing off as not for us and we're not capable of, or that's not the way that we do it.
Mm. And for me, it is absolutely about questioning those ruts that we get into that are so easy to, this is just the way it is, this is the way that this happens. And for me, life is such an exciting adventure, and the opportunities out there to do amazing things. And I guess if we point back to our question here, are you relationship ready? Once we know that we are whole and complete, then the world opens up to us in really, truly magical ways, whether that be around a relationship or whether that be about getting out of your comfort zone and just seeing what's out in the world from a place of knowing that we are already whole and complete and safe. And what I've noticed with our minds, like those things that in our challenges we will often say, you know, drink your tea out of a different mug, and that might not seem like much, but what I have noticed about my mind, my mind is the most amazing tool. All human beings have been gifted with this mind-blowingly fantastic thing. You know, we all have one of these, but it works in a very particular way, and it can get very stuck in its ways and limit me hugely. It can kind of it can make up stories that if you don't have your cup of tea in that china mug in the morning, the day's just not going to go right. And that might sound a little bit silly, but how many of you, if you're honest, have had things like that and have had that thought and it seemed really true? Something along those lines. Oh, that person, it's one of those days. That's it. Oh, my whole life's going to be like that now. Our mind is really good at those kinds of things. If we don't understand it and we don't play with it and we don't use it to its full capacity, and it looks to me like pushing myself a little bit outside my comfort zone. And, you know, when my mind says, oh, if you don't drink your tea out of that mug, if I say, really? Is it, you know, are you sure? Are you sure that not drinking my tea out of that mug is going to ruin my day, honestly? And I feel that in the way that we play around with this, it's like keeping your mind on its toes. And it opens our minds, and then things that we just never believed were possible in ways we never thought they could happen for us just begin to happen from that place. Life is such a fun adventure. And getting out of your comfort zone can start, you know, if that is something that literally terrifies you and you kind of say, oh, a skydive, or just drink your tea out of a different mug, just get up at a different time, just mix it up a bit, and you will just notice that when we shake our mind around a little bit, it opens and light floods in.
Yeah, because it is like, it's personal to each of us, isn't it? Like, and I know one of the other areas that I played around with, one of my uncomfortable zones was driving. And I'd got into my 30s and I had decided I was never going to be a driver. Like, that wasn't a skill I was going to have. I tried and I'd failed and I didn't like it. I felt anxious about it. So I'd written off the rest of my life as a non-driver. And it was never ever about that being wrong. Like, it's perfectly fine to be a non-driver. But what I saw was that the place that was coming from in me was fear, not okayness. Because there's plenty of things I probably will never do in my life. You know, for most of us, we don't get to do every single thing out in the world. You know, we get to do our bit. So it's never about we have to do everything or we have to do things that we're genuinely not that interested in. but it's about seeing the places where we stop ourselves from fear, rather than a genuine that just isn't for me, because there are things that aren't going to be for you and aren't going to be for me. And driving was one of those places where I'd written it off because I was scared, not because it genuinely wasn't for me. And when I kind of looked into that just a little bit, I saw that it was okay to be scared and to do it anyway. Like, I really saw, like Deb was talking about, with exploring how our thinking works and how our mind can play those tricks on us. It's perfectly okay. And even now, I have moments sometimes where I feel a bit anxious about driving. And then I just notice that it's okay. It's perfectly okay to drive if I feel a bit anxious. And it's perfectly okay for that anxiety to pass. And I actually have, you should see me having a great time on the M5 sometimes, you know. I'm the most happy, confident, calm driver. And then other times I'm not. And either's fine. But I kind of play around with, if my comfort zone, if my box says, oh, I'm okay to be a driver, I'm probably always going to be anxious about it, I'm not going to settle for that. I don't have to settle for that. I can play around with that. And I've watched that change. I've watched that be different in different moments.
Yeah, and this is it. There's so much more out in the world for us to explore and to know about ourselves. And the exploration is an ongoing one. It never stops. And to me, what we uncover, what we find is just, it's amazing, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I think it's a great starting point to just mess around and look. And you hit the nail on the head there when you said, what do you not do from fear? And I think once we begin to find out about ourselves and know, you know, what is this mind that we've been given? What is this body that we've been gifted? What is this place that we live in? You know, this world that we have been born into? How does it work? And what is going on here? And I think it is so easy to just get stuck in a very small box. And the other thing that really resonated when you were just speaking then was when you said that you would get anxious about driving, and what you realised was that didn't mean you didn't have to do it. Yeah. And I can absolutely see that some of the things for me, it was interesting when I got into this conversation, because some of the things, sometimes my anxiety would just have gone. Some things that used to make me feel really anxious doing them, the anxiety was just not there, and I could just do it happily and freely. And other things, I can feel anxious, but from this playing around, from this trying, well, you know, can you do it anyway? Even if you feel absolutely rigid with anxiety, can you just do that? What happens if you do? And just asking those questions and playing around with it has shown me that my ability to do stuff, my ability to show up in the world, my ability to do all sorts of things it doesn't actually go anywhere just because I have that feeling. Yeah. And learning to understand that actually the anxious feeling isn't telling me that the world is a dangerous place. The anxious feeling is telling me that my head's gone a little bit crazy. And knowing that has changed so much for me and opened up so much.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely huge. It's life-changing when we begin to see that the feelings that we have when we feel really anxious, when we feel really upset, when we feel really out of sorts, that's this amazing system that we've been born into. That's its way of telling us what's going on internally for us. It's not telling us that canoeing is dangerous. It's not telling us
driving is not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not telling us those things. But it really, if we misunderstand and think, oh, this anxious feeling means that I shouldn't drive. And I know for me, as my world, when I was in that space and my world was getting smaller and smaller, what was going on for me is when I felt scared, or you know, when I felt that fear and that anxiety, I thought that was warning me not to do this thing because it wasn't going to be good for me, so don't do it. And I don't think I consciously worked that out. I just didn't like that feeling, and I thought, oh, okay, then if I let myself off the hook and don't do it, that feeling will go. And a little bit like earlier when we were saying, life works 180 degrees the other way. And what I've really seen now is when I have those feelings, if I don't take them at face value, when I actually look them in the face and say, well, what's going on here? What are you doing? Why is this anxiety arising here? What are you telling me? From a place of knowing, it's just telling me that my thinking's going a little bit crazy, and I can still do what it is that I want it to do. My world has opened back up again.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, huge, huge.
So, thank you very much for joining us on the show this week.
Yeah, thank you.
What we have got coming up next week. Our question next week is, how do I reach out to someone who is lost?
Oh, and our topic next week is the 3 most dangerous words.
Oh, so join us same time next week for that interesting question and topic.
Absolutely. And if anything we've said today has brought anything up for you, and you've got questions or you want anything, feel free to comment under the video. Feel free to be in touch. We'd always love to hear from you.
Yes.
Take care.
Take care.
Have a great week.
See you soon.
Bye.